Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live at the call center here in Madison, Wisconsin. A little bit of a comedy of errors here. This rap video has already been because, I talk a lot with my hands. I grew up around a lot of Italians who were very demonstrative. And while I was doing that previously, I accidentally hit the button on my computer, so I lost the first 5 minutes of our first version of this rap video. Again, we're here at the call center in Madison, Wisconsin, where it is cold as hell outside. As it always is this year, and yes, I understand that hell theoretically is warm and not cold, but you know what I mean. The reason I mention the weather is because we do these rap videos after games, and nobody's better than me at crafting clever transitions from one topic to another to relate to the basketball game. So I only mention the weather being cold outside, like sub-zero, to segue us into our first topic related to this 69-65 Purdue loss at Wisconsin, that being Purdue's offensive start to the game, the form that Purdue's most recent slow start to a road basketball game took lied on the offensive end. Purdue did not score, I believe, for like the first 6 minutes of the game. I think of its first 15 possessions, only 2 of them yielded points, and only because Trevion Williams rebounded 2 misses and put them back in. Matt Painter did start his lineup that's more defensive-oriented than offensive-oriented, and yes, trolls, I did ask. And it sounded like the Williams move was made more to try to bring the best out of Trevion Williams as opposed to going with a defensive lineup or trying to get some energy out of Matt Harms to start this game. But the more defensive-oriented lineup, as I'd call it, really struggled offensively. The good news was Wisconsin didn't score either. So in that window where you couldn't score, it's not like you were down 10-0 right out of the gate. That came later. Purdue did get behind 9 in the first half, did rally in the second half to take a very brief lead, and then Aleem Ford made back-to-back threes, 2 of his 72 threes he made tonight, and Purdue never led again. But the point of all this is that, once again, this is a very limited Purdue team offensively. We can go back to the root cause of that if you want. The reality is that this team is just not built to be a great offensive team right now. People ask, well, it's recruiting. The players aren't good enough. There are 2 players who would have made a difference on this year's team. And talking about it is nonsensical because it's pointless. But people like to talk about this stuff, so I'm talking about it. They are Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein. If Carson Edwards stays for his senior year, he should not have. I'm not saying he should have. But if you don't lose a guy early to the NBA, or if you redshirt Ryan Klein, go back and read my column from a couple weeks ago. Ryan Klein on this team is worth 5 wins, at least 5 wins at this point of the season. He is everything this Purdue team needs. The reality is both of those things played out in a way that neither of them are here anymore. Your guards have been very limited all season long. You have 2 pretty solid big men whose impact has been muted to a certain extent by the fact that everyone in the Big Ten has a really good big guy. I think to the case of Matt Harms, I think what we're finding out this year is that, when the floor doesn't open up, when it's not about running, when it's not about, having an open lane to operate in, the guy who gets by on skill and mobility, things are a little bit different. One thing I will say about this, from a self-awareness perspective, is I will never laugh again at a recruit or someone around a recruit who says, I have a big skilled big guy who's more of a perimeter type of big guy, perhaps not a big physical big guy. He shouldn't go to the Big Ten because I don't think that necessarily suits him. I will never laugh at that person ever again because I've always said if you're good enough, you can play anywhere. That being said, if you go to a more open league than the Big Ten, I think that sort of player really can stand out a little bit more. And I think you're seeing that in Matt Harms this year. When Purdue was really guard-dominated last year and people had to dedicate themselves to those guards, things opened up for him beautifully. Things would have opened up for him beautifully this year, too, from a pick-and-pop perspective, from a pick-and-roll perspective, if the dynamics around him were a little bit of the same as last year. When you're just trying to hammer the ball inside to him, you're probably not playing to his strengths as much. But that's kind of what you have to do. He's obviously not been terribly productive from an offensive perspective lately. He is a good college player. He's not having a great season. He's been very quiet lately. but he is only part of Purdue's offensive difficulties here. Eric Hunter picks up 2 fouls before anyone's even scored tonight. Stuff happens sometimes. It happened to Hunter. Hunter was a non-factor tonight for that reason. Jihad Proctor, a guy who's been so productive for Purdue lately for whatever reason, and it didn't even dawn on me until after the game that he didn't score. And those 3 guys right there not scoring, you just don't have enough. This team is limited offensively enough that when you don't have 3 of your biggest producers producing, it's just not enough. And what I've said about Nojel Eastern was great tonight. Great. He was, if any one Purdue player was the reason Purdue was in this, you can make a case for Travion Williams. You can make a case for Sasha Stefanovic making those 3s in the second half. Nojel Eastern was good, really good in this game. But what I've always said about Nojel Eastern was that when he leads you in scoring, and he did not lead Purdue in scoring tonight, this is not an indictment of Nojel Eastern. This is just a general comment, is that when Nojel Eastern, who's naturally a gap filler as a scorer, a guy who doesn't need to score to win, but when he's scoring more than people you do need to be scoring to win, that is more an indictment of the avenues of offense that aren't producing than it is necessarily a compliment to Nojel Eastern filling gaps that ideally wouldn't be there. Nojel Eastern's game is never going to be defined by scoring. When he does score, it needs to be offensive rebounding. It needs to be opportunism. It needs to be transition. And that is a lot of what he did tonight very well. But his point total shouldn't jump off the box score the way it does today, because you need your other guys to be producing more than was produced tonight. So Purdue's limited enough offensively, and when it needs all of its guys at least contributing to the common cause here. And they obviously did not tonight. Obviously, Evan Boudreaux was a huge difference maker against Wisconsin the first time around. I don't think he had quite the same impact in this game, obviously. But this was the proverbial total team effort here. It's not like picking on any one guy or putting this on any one guy is necessarily appropriate. This is just Purdue's offensive reality, and a reality that as of February 17th, whatever it is, expecting it to change is probably a little bit. February 18th. Yes, February 18th for 40 more minutes, 39 and a half more minutes. Expecting it to change now is probably a little bit ambitious. But the disappointing part from Purdue's perspective, too, on top of just offensively, this is kind of what you are. And none of this should necessarily surprise anyone. That being said, Purdue did enough offensively to get back in this game, and they deserve credit for that. But the disappointing thing the last 3 games here for Purdue is Purdue's been a pretty decent defensive team all season long. The last 3 opponents have shot, I don't even know what, but Penn State and Ohio State shot a combined 50% the last 2 games. Wisconsin goes 12 of, Wisconsin goes 12 of 31. That's not a horrible percentage, but 12 3-pointers obviously is a lot of 3-pointers. It's attention to detail. It's making sure you're getting out on the guys that need to be gotten out on. And I don't know necessarily. I have to go back and watch the game tomorrow, obviously, but after Aleem Ford has made 4 threes, the hyper-awareness kind of has to kick in. After he's made 3 threes, after he's made 2 threes, the hyper-awareness kind of has to kick in. Purdue just has to do a better job taking opponents' strengths away. It's something they've typically been pretty good at defensively. This Wisconsin team, you want their guards attacking off the dribble because it's not their strength. You need to run them off the line and make them put the ball on the floor because that's not their strength. And even if it is, 2s are better than 3s. And Purdue just gave them too many looks. And if you go back and read my prediction where I picked Purdue to win this game, it came with the caveat that unless Wisconsin gets too many clean looks from 3s, makes 12, 13, 14 threes, they made 12. That is precisely why they won this game. That and obviously the scrap that came to play when obviously they got those 4 offensive rebounds in the span of 3 possessions. They're late. Give Wisconsin credit for that. I don't remember the exact circumstances of them, whether Purdue could have done something about it necessarily or Wisconsin was just in the right place at the right time because they were trying really hard. I don't know. But those were really important rebounds, obviously, too. So Purdue bludgeoned these guys on the boards in Mackey Arena a couple weeks ago. And I guess there's it's not ironic. Maybe it's the Alanis Morissette definition of irony, but it's funny how things work out, that Purdue clobbers these guys on the glass, almost to an unprecedented extent, 41-16 in Mackey Arena a while ago. And Wisconsin, even though it gets out-rebounded, gives up 15 offensive rebounds, 19 second chance points itself, ends up beating Purdue with rebounding. If Purdue gets 2 of those 4 offensive rebounds, real good chance that I'm talking about a very different game here. But Purdue got none of those 4 rebounds. Purdue has 2 looks from 3, one better than the other. Had its chance, but it had chances before that too. It had chances to actually score in the first 6 minutes of the game, which it did not do. It had chances at 4 rebounds that would have, put Purdue in a much better position than it's in, and just didn't get it done. But Purdue is obviously now in a very precarious position, only because of changing times, changing selection criteria, whatever it may be. And again, the uncommon, almost unprecedented resume strength of the Big Ten is a team that was, 2 games over 500 coming into this game tonight overall, even in the conversation to make the NCAA tournament, let alone projected to be in it. Where they're going to be tomorrow morning, I don't know. This would have been a big one. Purdue's margin for error is down to nothing. Purdue's got to win its 3 home games, probably non-negotiable. And then I don't know about Iowa, if Purdue can get in without beating Iowa. But I'm also still acclimating to these changing times myself, and actually suspending disbelief a little bit to accept the fact that we might live in a world where 11 teams from the same conference can go to the Big Ten or can go to the NCAA tournament, accepting the fact that a team that's currently 14-13 could still possibly go to the NCAA tournament. I'm adjusting to that reality myself. How much it actually is reality, I don't know, but we'll find out in a couple weeks here. Between today and then, Purdue has to beat Michigan, has to beat Rutgers, has to beat Indiana at home, starting with Michigan this weekend. And then obviously we'll see about Iowa and Iowa City, and then the Big Ten tournament, obviously. But Purdue really could have helped itself in a lot of different ways here tonight, both at the in-game and bigger picture levels. Wasn't able to quite get it done. But kind of see where they go from here. And that's kind of how when I run out of stuff to talk about, that's kind of my default setting, like the button on Teddy Ruxpin, where you hit the button and he says the same thing. It's a little nod for you children of the 80s like myself, Teddy Ruxpin. I say we'll see where they go from here. That's code for I got nothing else. I just need something to say. Like I say about post-game press conferences, when people rip on what people say, I say, hey, when there's nothing to say, you still got to say something. Anyway, now there's officially nothing to say. I am done. From Purdue's 69-65 loss here at the Kohl Center in Madison, Wisconsin, where I got the rare courtside seat after the game, which is very refreshing, because normally this place puts the ice down or lifts the court up, however you want to term it, after games, so I usually have to go somewhere random. Today I'm courtside. Courtside no more. I have to go back to my hotel. I heard it's, again, cold as hell out there. From Purdue's 69-65 loss at Wisconsin, this is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And we will talk to you again Saturday night from West Lafayette after Purdue plays the Wolverines of Michigan. Have a good night, everybody.